He is. Soccer.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned like, I'm
Yeah,
feeling
Yeah.
tomorrow night, senior pictures for my oldest son for his soccer team.
Right.
Yeah, so then tonight will be come home, do practices for my youngest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Obviously that.
been, you know, for my oldest son, the senior this year, so it's been a little bit, you know, oh my God, it's all ending.
Yes,
You know,
yeah,
it's
oh
very-
yeah, I remember that feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
Like calendar.
Do
Yeah.
do they like travel as well? or then-
Yeah, so they do, my oldest plays soccer,
Yeah.
so he'll play travel in the spring. At least he did the last couple, we'll see.
Yeah.
With now, a lot of the championships, it's a senior, we'll see if they, so
Yeah,
all wanna play because they're not playing for next season.
Yeah.
In a way,
yeah,
but yeah, normally he
Okay.
does, and then my
Big
younger
camera.
will play football,
Yeah.
and then he'll play flag football. You know, in the winter and spring,
Yeah.
so.
okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it does, it comes with a price.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's, you know, all the things I used to do on the weekends are no longer,
Yes,
you know, viable.
yeah,
Right, like you're like total change in terms of. And then you don't get to look at them until later, yeah. Oh my gosh, no, it's okay.
Please resume the lively conversation.
I just complain about people who park badly. It's like 3 spaces down there that you can't use because the guy in front backed up too far and the guy behind it backed up far behind it.
Yeah, yeah, that's not always, I mean, I can.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's what,
It's a little bit.
I'm over it.
Softness are being.
I know, I smell this. I'm trying to say that I was working on something about it.
Walk around, eating chips, it's very tough.
Very.
well, and they're paving Kelly too, Kelly's doing.
Well, I wasn't expecting, I was like, paying attention to what the radio was saying on the world.
Oh, it's gonna be a really good, well, my husband and I are fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Woke up, it's like, well, we're gonna sit. So I go down, I went to bed at 7:30. I get like 7 down to 50, I'm not doing 50.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, and they live up in here.
Yeah.
They're not unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Hey. You are our the 2 only community reps here in the room? Everybody else is staff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just walked.
Oh,
Yeah.
3, yay.
3.
3 and 2 communities.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Big offer.
I know.
Just don't have
Yes.
It's hard to make the trek.
Anything, like, they don't wanna do anything.
We do have good participation online.
Yeah, it's like, it's a time.
It's so much effort, so easy to just.
Okay. Guess, we can't do minutes or anything the usual.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so good morning, everybody. It's October 16th. It appears we don't have a quorum, so we will just go around the room and do introductions and then we can get into the agenda. Nate, do you want to start?
Nate Miller, staff with the commission.
Wendy Coulthard, Francis too.
Expert.
Are you recording?
No, I think Cam's. It's recording.
Oh, thanks, Cam. Sorry.
On forum with the commission. You can be member of staff.
Anthony, David Tilton, SNHPC.
James Mayo, SNHPC, which is your Manchester planning.
Adam Lasney, staff.
Sylvia Von Owlock with SNHPC.
Maggie Baldwin with City of Manchester DPW.
Ben Herbert, Region 8 Mobility Manager.
And if we can go around our virtual, I'm just gonna ask everyone to introduce themselves. Let's start with Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Rogers. I am on the board of the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire, and I write a column for the Ink Link in Manchester.
Thank you. Angelique.
Good morning, Angelique Pandolf with Easter Seals.
Thank you. And Kristen. Oh, your mic's not working. Okay, so I think reading lips, she said, "Hi, I'm Kristen Farr. I'm with the town of Londonderry." Yeah. Craig,
Hi, Craig Tufts, Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
great. Bill,
Hey, Bill Watson, New Hampshire DOT.
thanks, Bill. Matt,
Good morning, Matt Watkins, Nashua Regional Planning Commission.
why don't I have you? Thank you. JB,
JB Mack, Southwest Region Planning Commission.
excellent. And Alex Hawk.
Yeah, Alex Hawk, resident of Manchester.
Thanks, Alex. And Cam?
Talking to me?
Hi, good morning, Cam Perlman, SNHPC.
Thanks, Cam. Alex?
Alex Mello with the town of Wyndham.
Hi, Alex. And Lee.
Hi, everybody.
Lee, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, this is Lee Levine, Federal Highway Administration.
All right. Did I miss anyone?
Andrew Haddock.
Andrew.
Andrew Haddock, Chestertown Planner.
Thanks, Andrew. All right.
All right, so we will skip the consideration of minutes and move right into item number 1, which is the Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan. Right. So let me find this here. Yeah. I have it up. Gonna work on sharing the screen. And Cam, I'll ask you to confirm that it's going full screen now.
Yep, it's full screen. And we did just, we're joined by Kristen Clark and Mike Baskin.
Great, thank you, Cam. Welcome everyone this morning. Really pleased to be able to share that we've reached a major milestone with the Transportation Resilience Improvement Plan. We do have a final draft that is ready for adoption. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who contributed to this. We have some folks who kind of signed on to be trip champions. Maggie did a really great work with kind of doing a review from the perspective of Manchester DPW, and I think others on the call also were able to review and offer comments. And especially thank you to folks at DOT for letting us piggyback off of their amazing flooding data, and Lee Levine for really paving the way to get us the technical support we needed from Protect staff at the Federal Highway Administration. So since we don't have a quorum in the room, there's no real action to take today, but what we would be asking for is for a consensus for folks here and for those on the call to recommend this for adoption by the MPO Policy Committee when they meet at the end of the month. So just a little bit of a very high level overview of what this is. This is a planning opportunity that is authorized under the Federal Protect Program, and that stands for Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, Cost-Saving Transportation. And the folks who are authorized to complete a resilience improvement plan, it's either a state DOT or an MPO. Just for clarity's sake, DOT did publish a resilience improvement plan earlier this year. They're calling theirs a RIP for short. So it's part of the reason why we adopted the name TRIP, just as a way to distinguish. So it is a transportation resilience improvement plan, and that's why we're using that acronym.
Other items of note, and I think this is why folks in this region were really interested in the opportunity to develop one of these plans. Projects that are receiving PROTECT funding can be eligible for significant local cost share reduction if they're included in a resilience improvement plan. So there's basically two tiers. You get a 7% reduction in local cost share if your project is prioritized in an adopted RIP. So every project that made it into this plan would be qualified for that, and we're going to be asking for a determination letter from Lee, once we have this plan adopted. The other reduction comes if the RIP is incorporated into a long-range transportation plan. And good news for us, we are currently working on our MTP right now, and James and I are gonna make sure that this is effectively incorporated, and then we should, every project should then be qualified for the full 10% reduction. There has been kind of a ebb and flow in our understanding of where what the status of PROTECT discretionary funds are right now. So we are all keeping fingers crossed that they will be reactivated. And in the meantime, we know that we have a really great plan that can be put to use if any of our communities are interested in submitting for discretionary funds. So what have we done? I think the last time we chatted about this was in June. And since then, we got a detailed review from some key stakeholders, many folks who are on this call today. I will also note that we made a point of having folks at DES and the Nature Conservancy do a careful review, because they're often coming at these same issues around flood hazard and flood mitigation from a different standpoint. Like they're looking at it through an environmental lens. But since our work intersects so much, and since we're hoping to work with DES especially more frequently on some culvert upgrade projects, we thought it was really important to get their eye on this. And I always think it's helpful to have kind of an outsider's perspective who's not thinking about this with a transportation lens, because it helped us know where we needed to clarify any content and just make sure it was as readable and intelligible as possible, no matter what professional lens you're coming from. So we just had some minor edits and updates. And I would say if you don't have time to do a detailed read of the whole thing, the major changes are summarized in an FAQ on page 37. One thing that was a kind of a question mark for a lot of folks is like, well, if these are prioritized projects, why aren't they ranked or scored in any way? And through conversations with Lee and folks at the federal PROTECT program, it became clear that was work we just didn't need to do. If it's on a prioritized list, it's considered prioritized. So this is a priority project. Any project on the list could be eligible for discretionary funds. And with that knowledge, we didn't want to go through a very labor-intensive ranking and scoring exercise if it wasn't necessary. Other things we noted, people had questions, especially about like, well, if we're using the state's statewide DOT data, why isn't there like exact overlap in the projects that they've identified as priorities in their RIP and the projects that we've identified as priorities in our TRIP? So we provide a little bit of explanation and clarification on why that is. One thing is just a scale, right? The state is having to look at the entire state and set priorities. They're also having to address issues of coastal flooding, sea level rise. And so they might not see every project in our region as their kind of top line priority. The other thing is their process and the data layers that they used to identify target geographies was slightly different than what we selected. And there's a little bit more description about that in the plan, but they basically used a risk-based cost assessment as their kind of final tool for identifying priorities. We used the vulnerability layer, and we felt that was much more effective for our regional lens. And there's some description as to why we chose that. And then finally, we talked about the opportunity to incorporate new projects via plan amendment. This group, the MPO does this all the time with TIP amendments and things like that. And we know that a lot of this is based on desk research. It's quantitative analysis, it's mapping. It may not capture every single thing that all of our communities are facing in terms of their flooding concerns. So what we wanted to say is like, since we didn't have the opportunity to rigorously ground truth this, we want to leave the window open. If a community knows that there's a documented flooding issue and a project hasn't already been enumerated in this plan, they might still want to apply for PROTECT discretionary funds. They could do that. They could actually ask the MPO to amend the plan. The one thing to note is that timing is really of the essence. We need the any updated projects to be included in the plan prior to submitting that discretionary grant application. But we wanted to make sure that we clarified there was an avenue for making changes and adding new projects. And then in terms of adoption, so this is a voluntary plan. So we're not required to do this. There's no required public comment period. There's no required public hearing. However, I know that Aloyo and I kind of communicated to everyone on TAC and MPO that we would welcome additional reviewers and comments. And if there's anything we could do to refine this before adoption, we'd love to hear from you. If there are folks in your community who might be interested in this, please feel free to share it with them. And we would welcome insights, especially prior to the MPO meeting on October 28th. And then following MPO adoption, we'll request a determination from Lee to show that this plan enables the projects on the list to be eligible for the cost share reduction. So that's the big picture summary of where we are right now. There's a QR code for folks in the room or on the call who might want to link directly to the page where you can download the plan. And yeah, if there's any questions, please let me know. Yeah.
I'm sorry if you already said it, but so with the state doing their RIP and you guys doing the trip, do each of the projects identified in the RIP and trip get the 7% cost reduction? And like, what's the interplay between the two?
So any project that is in our region so basically every project that is in the NHDOT's RIP made it into our list. Okay. So we know that we've covered that ground. Then there are additional projects that we've selected based on our analysis that will also be included for our region. So for folks in our region, if you're looking for like a shorthand, you only have to look at this plan. This is more for our region. This is a longer and more comprehensive list.
Okay. And other MPOs can do the same for their region.
We're the first MPO in New Hampshire to produce a trip, I believe. If there's any other MPOs who've gotten ahead of us, you can raise your hand and let us know. But so at this point in time, it's just SNHPC's region who's done a regional.
Okay. But if the other MPOs wanted to and did put together,
absolutely,
be considered.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Question here. Will this affect or impact Manchester's other work on redirecting or separating sewage from runoff water?
It would not. This plan does not affect that project. However, you know, Maggie and I have talked about it. We've chatted with folks who are at federal highways who also have connections at EPA. And we're mindful of the fact that kind of the vulnerability assessment that has happened that really looks at flooding in terms of kind of culverts and bridges might not be fully comprehensive for a urban environment where there's like undergrounded streams and CSO initiatives happening. So there's a lot of different directions we can go, and potentially Manchester could look into EPA funding to do a municipal water sewer vulnerability assessment. Potentially, there could be findings emerging from the CSO project and documented flooding issues that could be added through amendment.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Suzanne, is the road network limited to certain road types, like our local roads?
That is a great question. So this is really important for folks on the call. So we often just kind of narrow our scope of analysis and based upon a lot of federal funding eligibility, we often focus on federal aid eligible roads. My understanding, and Lee can correct me if I'm wrong, but the last conversation we had from folks who are running the Protect program is that these discretionary funds can in fact apply to local roads that are not part of the Fed aid system. So that's another reason why we wanted to open up that amendment process, because we don't know everything that's happening on every local road. And so we want to make sure that if a community really wants to prepare a discretionary grant project focusing on their local roads where there's a major flooding concern, that they should be able to do that. Lee, did you want to weigh in?
That's my understanding too. So I think you've done a good job laying that out. And I think, one of our comments was on the draft was that, or we encouraged you guys to consider using other data besides just the state data only for your risk assessment. So I think that kind of speaks to the same issue here, that you can assess local and regional assets that were not necessarily on the state list or identified in the state RIP.
Yeah. Any other questions? So yeah, we'd just be looking for consensus among those present that this should be moved forward for adoption.
Since we don't have a motion, I'm in favor of, I can send it. Please move it forward to the MBO. Thank you very much. And all your team. You know, I saw you when you started it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the way it looks.
Good. I like that.
All right, if we just get thumbs up from folks in our home viewers about having consensus. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Jeff. I saw several.
Yeah.
Bill Watson. Thank you, Matt. Okay, thanks, Alex. All right, I see thumbs up. I believe you have.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, on to item number 2, overview of transportation demand management toolkit from Adam.
Kim, can you see that?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, morning, everyone. I'm going to talk for a few minutes today about transportation demand management and the related toolkit that we've been working on for the last few months. It's a work in progress, and it's been a good project to work on with Suzanne and Sylvia, and Nicole, who was our summer intern, did a lot of work as well. So what is transportation demand management? There are several definitions floating around online, but one that I liked was a set of strategies that provide travelers with choices to influence travel behavior, such as when, where, and how they travel. So the goals of TDM, basically making the most efficient use of the existing infrastructure, whether that be parking or roadways or multimodal paths, improving mobility options for folks traveling, especially to and from work, reducing congestion when folks carpool and take alternative modes. That's generally what we see happen. And of course, lowering vehicle emissions. There are many TDM strategies, far too many to put on here. There are probably 20 in all, but I put a few examples on here. Carpool and vanpool being one of the more obvious ones. Taking folks out of single occupancy vehicles. Guaranteed ride home is another one that can be used for an employer to basically, if an employee rides their bike to work and then they have a family emergency, it's a way to ensure that they have a ride home if something goes wrong. Parking space cash out is kind of what it sounds like. If parking is constrained at a certain site, someone has the opportunity to quote buy out their parking space if they're willing to use alternative modes to get to work. And then of course the shuttle system, all of these really are best used in denser urban areas. So the Manchester Mill Yard is kind of what we've been focusing on, is that's our densest job area in our region. So why a toolkit? This is mentioned in our Unified Planning Work Program, encouraging and enhancing employer participation in TDM projects and programs. We've been researching best practices from around the country. The ones closer to home in Burlington and Portland, Maine have been of interest. Also, programs in cities of a similar size to Manchester and similar regions to our own. We want to take what others have done and apply that to our region. And at the end of the day, it's about inspiring collaboration. This toolkit is intended for employers, but it works best when employers collaborate with transit agencies, city departments, and of course, their own employees to make these initiatives work. And why now? Last year, you may remember there was a transportation equity study for the biofabrication cluster in the mill yard. The report was released in December of last year. And in this study, TDM was mentioned as one of the key strategies to move forward to help with the job growth in the mill yard that's coming up, especially in the biofabrication industry. The report mentions that in the next 10 years, they expect 9,000 jobs to be added in the mill yard. And it says in the report that single occupancy vehicles cannot be the sole way of getting to work. Just simply not the infrastructure to handle that as we go into the next 5 or 10 years with this employment growth. So some of the benefits we came up with, we divided them into 3 categories for employers, employees, and then the general public or the community. For employers, employee satisfaction increases when there's options on different ways to get to work. Business cost savings can happen when there's less parking and infrastructure to maintain at a workplace. And sustainability goals, many companies in the mill yard especially have these, and it's generally in line with what businesses want to portray as going forward. So for employees, the cost savings of not driving your own car every day, maintenance of your vehicle, the health benefits can accrue when someone is walking or biking to work. Also less stress of a daily commute and finding parking in a congested area. And the flexibility to have options is generally seen as a positive thing in our region and beyond. And in the community, efficiencies result when we have carpools and effective transit going to employment centers. Neighborhood vitality, of course, businesses succeed more when there's foot traffic and not people circling for parking for 20 minutes. And then positive relationships, as I mentioned, the collaboration between the private sector and transit and the city is how this best moves forward. So we wanted to add some levity to the document. So we came up with Todd M, the TDM toad. He's kind of the mascot, and he will be appearing throughout the document. This is the introduction. It's a 2-page introduction, so we wanted to make this as clear and simple as possible. Obviously, to put both pages on one sheet, you can't really read everything, but I wanted to show you what the overall layout looks like. We wanted to break up, didn't want paragraphs of text. We were bolding words, we have photos, we have icons. The idea here is to show this to an employer, and if they have 30 seconds, they can get an idea of what's going on without having to dive into a 20-page document. So this is where the document will start. You can see our menu of strategies right here that I mentioned some of earlier. Now we have 10 that we'll be focusing on, and each one of these will have its own fact sheet to go along with this 2-page intro. And the fact sheets will just be 1-pagers. We have some of our benefits over here. A paragraph about using the toolkit, how to get started, and then some approaches. Of course, our contact info at the bottom. Just a couple of the fact sheets. These are currently in development, but this is the bicycle supports fact sheet. As you can see, we have these icons and the menu of benefits that are going to appear throughout the document. This one happens to be sustainability, health benefits, commuter cost savings, transportation efficiencies, and neighborhood vitality. Down here, we have a success story that we're going to highlight in each of the fact sheets. We're trying to make these as close to New Hampshire as possible. It's nice if one's in California, but may not apply if we're talking about Los Angeles versus Manchester, New Hampshire. And then we have a few strategies, ways employers can get a TDM project kickstarted over on the right here. Here's another one, guaranteed ride home. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. We have our benefits, a little one or two sentence summary at the top. And the success story here is the UNH Wildcat Transit guaranteed ride home program. So it gives you an idea of what these fact sheets are going to look like. As I said, there'll be one for each of the 10 strategies, and we are looking forward to moving forward on this as we get more input. So a couple of questions here. What is community appetite for this type of toolkit? And when we're ready to start sharing the document, what channels would you recommend for outreach? So if anyone has any thoughts on that, feel free to share. If not, you can think about it and provide input at a later time as well.
I just know that, this is it seems like a very Manchester centric thing, but this really has application throughout our communities in the region. For example, Adam and I had a number of conversations with the town of Hooksett about their industrial area, which has a lot of jobs and has some issues or constraints around capacity on those roads. And so, TDM would be an excellent strategy there to, any number of the strategies from the TDM toolkit would be an excellent application there. So
I did mean to mention too that the Volpe transportation report had four scales that this could be applied to, the milliard being the main one, but then also milliard in downtown greater area, the full city of Manchester, or at a regional scale. I meant to mention that earlier. So into what James said, yeah, there are other areas in the region that do have clusters of employment that it could be applicable, but we've been concentrating on the milliard thus far.
So you mentioned clusters of employment. For transportation strategies, is it like people go to a hub and then whatever that additional transportation handles like last mile transport, or is that picking up from housing hubs and bringing to workplace hubs?
It could be either, depending on the situation. When we kind of dial in and look at more data, we'll know more of where people are coming from. We know the milliard is a cluster of employment, but there are probably others that we aren't thinking of right now. But the strategies are adaptable to various geographical applications.
Because I know we had mentioned at some point that like a third of people like commute into Manchester for work, third out, third stay. So it's like it's interesting. It's like a Concord resident coming into Manchester to be like, well, we have MTA that runs daily, but not exactly at like what my traditional work hours would be. So that kind of like pushes me out of that option for commuting into work. So yeah, just something to consider. Like, is it just last mile, or is it kind of all parts of that?
Yeah, we're working with MTA to take a closer look at the green dash, various routes is something else we'd like to do as part of this project.
And I would just add that it's truly like a multimodal view when you think about transportation demand management. Like, we want to think about the pedestrian and bicycle network so that people who kind of live closer to their place of employment have that as a viable option and are somehow incentivized to make that choice, given the kind of infrastructure available and or the employer incentives to do that. And I think that even something like help a carpool system where you Commute Smart, by the way, is having their Great Fall Challenge, like having a system that is even more localized, or like with the clusters of employers working together to help their employees pair off in carpool situations could be another method too. So cars are not excluded. It's more just like, how do we kind of maximize the options?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's nice to have the toolkit because, it isn't a problem until it is. And so, at some point, different areas will hit their capacity limits and the strategies will come. All of a sudden, they'll be very important. So, It's nice to have the tool set ready to go.
Yeah, that OP report was kind of eye-opening. That talked about the amount of jobs coming in. Suzanne's a little more familiar with the ins and outs of that report, but yeah, looking through some of it, it's definitely eye-opening to me.
Yeah, and we can share that link for sure with folks in this room. Maybe we can put that as a after tech to do, just to kind of communicate that out. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, this was a study that was funded by the Build Back Better grant for the city. And I think that it offers a lot of great insights. There was really good community outreach because I think a lot of the jobs are going to be like technician level jobs, and we'd like those to be filled by folks who are already residents of Manchester and keep the kind of economic benefits accrued to the city and the residents that are here already. And we also have to think about like, what about folks coming in from other parts of the region and outside the region? So it's a really good way to think about the future and like if we really are going to grow the biofabrication industry to the extent that it can be grown, what are all the other infrastructure components that need to be accounted for?
So Manchester struggles with getting funding to improve sidewalks, and sometimes it's a battle to even get bike lanes implemented. So is there a way to use this toolkit to help people advocate for funding to help bring the rest of the infrastructure up so we can use more modes? You know, I only live 4 miles from where I work, but I drove my bike once and it was pretty scary. Like, you know, so, but if the infrastructure was there with improved safety, like there's a lot of people like me that would probably change their modes. So it's kind of like, the toolkit is useful, but how do we leverage that to push for actual like implementation, I guess?
Well, and I think that that's one of the exciting things about, and that's why we wanted to start to share this with you all while it's in development, because we'd like to think about employers being a major voice at the table in terms of the need for these improvements. The other thing to note is that like transportation demand management is a concept, but in a lot of communities, and I haven't done as much of the case study research as Adam has, but Massachusetts, for example, there'll be like transportation management associations where you actually have a couple people on staff who are doing the work. There's a little bit of a kind of employer fee to participate, and then you actually start to generate funds that can support some of these broader initiatives. That's a kind of a next level step that I'm not sure if we're quite ready for yet, but at least getting the conversation going and bringing like employers to the table as key stakeholders, I think is a really great outcome of this work. And we would love if there's any kind of employers that you think would be willing to help us refine this and make it as useful as possible. We'd welcome those recommendations too.
I'm hearing about how Elon Musk is building a whole new city, some of stuff that happens, so that he's building the infrastructure. He's got enough money, he can build a whole new thing. But the idea you just posed about employers, we don't really have a big enough single employer, but the conglomeration of multiple employers is where the funding's going to be, where the power, the political power to get the sidewalks built is going to come from. So to me, the tool is useful as a mechanism to encourage employers to talk to each other. Probably they don't, you know, they're all doing their own thing.
Right.
But if they recognize that this is something that's going to make their people happier, to get like you got 5 employers who recognize 5 people's are going to be happier, then they'll be willing to do it by themselves. The guys go like, nah, I got too much to do.
Right.
2 of them like, no, we can't have like 4 or 5.
Right, or a dozen or more, right? Like if we're talking about downtown in the mill yard, there's a lot of employers who I think could be
sounds
good.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comments. There's like a central downtown like business group that I think obviously
that's a great idea.
Interested to talk to. And then with the mill yard, like 9,000 jobs is
right. Like I don't know what Rotary does, and Rotary used to be kind of business group, right? Do they still even function?
Does that business group is like do they have a regular scheduled meeting?
So
okay, I'll ask Jody in a second.
Yeah, she definitely.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I know there at least a group that pays into some sort of aggregation or cooperation.
Yeah, they do. They're helping to support the cleanup crews, right? Yeah,
So
that's a great way to
that
talk
could be
to.
a good way to get.
They
a lot
already
of
work with
those-
each other.
Exactly.
A good way to get like those types of stakeholders all together.
That would really good.
If Zoyard has like a few like really big employers, so I mean, those are obviously the ones to reach out to.
Yeah, and we also like facilitate Manchester Connects, which is a lot of like volunteers coming from different employers, so I feel like we have a couple good inroads for just starting to spread the word about this. I'd like to engage people while we're still in development so that like they feel more invested in it too.
And you can actually like manage the policies based on
What they can do, yeah.
Because 9,000 vehicles on Granite coming out in this. It already is a little tough.
Exactly.
Rush hours.
Context, the whole city has 60,000 jobs. So
60,000.
60,000.
60, okay.
So it would be adding what? Another, making it now close to 70. Be not insignificant.
Right.
15-20% increase, that's a lot. Especially in that one, like, I think in a pretty condensed area.
Yeah. We do have, I mean, it's a public tool, but there's this great tool called On the Map from Census, and you can use that to look at exactly where and how people are commuting from very specific geographic areas. Like, there are some shortcomings with the data and that like, not everybody who has a check issued from an address works at that address, but by and large, it's a good indication of travel behaviors and can inform the kind of strategies you want to deploy to address specific issues. So like if you have an issue with the highway exit reaching capacity, then a carpool strategy or a park and ride facility with shuttle start to look like really appealing solutions.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Manchester Transit Education Sessions presentation by Ben.
All right, can everybody see this full screen online?
Yes. Looking good.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you. My name is Ben Herbert. I'm the Regional Mobility Manager here for the Southern New Hampshire region. I'm also joined today by our Assistant Planner, Liliana Bornum. We're going to be talking about some of our outreach work we've done regarding the MTA and the Manchester Health Department. So just a bit of background information. A little bit ago, the health department circulated the survey. It had about 260 responses from Manchester's older adult population. And one of the main reasons that older adults don't utilize public transit or the MTA boiled down to just misunderstandings, misinformation, or just lack of general knowledge about like how to ride it, where to find it, the fares, et cetera, all the rules with that. And so their first step was to partner with the MTA to embark on this sort of educational campaign throughout the city to help get seniors riding the bus. And this all stemmed from sort of, I think it was like a healthy foods initiative to help get the seniors connected to more nutritional options and healthy food, et cetera, et cetera. And so the overall goal was to increase access and the use of the MTA by older residents to get to their essential services, in this case, food, but it can also be used just for getting to the medical appointments or even just getting out of the house to reduce isolation. And so the MTA and the health department working together, where the heck do we come in? Well, so as a mobility manager, I work to help people throughout the region get connected to, like I said, their medical appointments, grocery stores, et cetera, help meet their essential needs. And Liliana also has a key stake in this as well, right?
Yeah.
So I am, in addition to working on some transportation focused planning projects like the trip, I've also been working directly with the MTA to pilot a bus buddy program where we train volunteers so that then they can teach other people how to ride the bus.
And folks on the call here, Liliana, you might want to come over to the table so you're closer to the mic. Actually.
Takes a seat. Okay. So over the last, I'd say about a month and a half, 2 months, we've gone to 7 locations and the 8th one coming up next week. We've gone to various locations that are operated by the Manchester Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So the Varney School Apartments, the Burns High Rise Tower, the Paraso Apartments down the street, and the Calavas Apartments. We actually didn't go to the Calavas Apartments because we were actually at the TAC meeting last month for this, but it was still the same things we talked about over there. And then we also went to some of the Central City locations, so the City Library on Pine Street, the YMCA, the Cash and Senior Center, and then actually coming up next Friday, we'll be at the Health Department office, given our final for now presentation. And so we highlighted a few things on this, of course, with the MTA really being like the main show at these events. We talked about how to find the bus using the hours and fares. We put up on a projector like the live bus tracking software, so people would go in on GPS and see like their #1 bus on the map and where it's coming. Funny stories, sometimes the GPS on those buses would like lose like their connection to the tablet, so the bus would just like stop in the middle of like Elm Street. And then 10 minutes later, it would reconnect and it would be down on like South Willow. But instead of it catching up via the route, it would just start like going like 80 miles per hour, like cutting through the city. So we'd be talking about, all the safety features on the bus, how clean it is, the ramps and wheelchair stuff. And then meanwhile, the bus is like annihilating 80 homes and but everyone knew that wasn't actually happening. So that was good to know. And since it was focused on getting access to food and nutrition, MTA really highlighted on using the bus to get to a lot of the key shopping areas where you can access food. So all the Hannaford's locations, both here in Manchester as well as in Goffstown, and I think it connects to one in Hooksett. It does on one in Hooksett as well. The market baskets as well, or just one market basket it connects to. The market basket here in Manchester. And also the Walmart in Manchester and the Walmart in Hooksett. They also touched on the express routes, so getting to Concord, Nashua, and Salem, and how to use those buses. And since I tend to focus on a more macro level regarding transportation, I did a quick highlight on other services that could help out people in Manchester. So any of the nonprofit on-call services like Easter Seals, or Meals on Wheels, or any volunteer programs like the Caregivers, or some of the statewide stuff like Future Insight. And then Liliana would also give a plug on the statewide transportation needs assessment, which has been going on for about a month, 2 months now, and it's going to be running till the end of October. Sylvia's nodding to confirm that. And so after talking about all of this, and of course, since it was about food, the health department also had a table of like fruit, granola bars, nutrient bars, and juices that I definitely did not take advantage of at every presentation. But what was really interesting was what we heard from those who attended these sessions. Liliana, do you want to touch on this?
So part of why I was there was to kind of help share this information, but I was also there to gather information, hear what people are saying, what questions they have, so that I can use that to influence the Bus Buddy pilot program. So a lot of what we heard were just general questions about the bus system. People, for the most part, knew that the bus system existed, but they didn't know where it went. They didn't know if it went to the places they wanted to go. Particularly, I heard a couple questions about Market Basket, and then a lot of questions about different medical facilities. And then people weren't sure if the bus system could accommodate their mobility issues. There were a lot of people who asked if they could take a walker or a wheelchair, or what options they had if they couldn't get to a bus stop. And so it was really promising to hear that, like, a lot of these people were interested in learning more. that they had these questions about, okay, well, how can I utilize this resource? So there's definitely seeing some of that interest there. And that these were relatively simple questions to answer.
I remember one individual shared how he used to use the MTA all the time, maybe like a couple decades ago. And then he stopped using it once he was able to like drive himself and have a car and stuff. And then now he could no longer drive himself, but he was unsure about how to get back into using the bus because he thought it was just like such a whole new experience. And really, after the session, he was telling us that he learned that it really hasn't changed much for him in terms of how he can navigate the city himself using transit. So that was a really cool thing to learn. And on top of the health department bringing all of their nutritional goodies and stuff, the MTA also brought some cool stuff. They had some of their swag like pens and drawstring bags. They also brought free bus passes, free single day bus passes that anybody could use and activate on whichever day they wanted to use. They also did raffles for gift cards to Market Basket. If the session only had like 5 or 10 people at it, then like everybody would get one. And we had some where we had maybe like 20, 30 plus people, and we kind of raffled those off as well. And then also at each of these places, I put together these little posters and brochures. And so MTA would always come out with their like big fold up poster that would show the whole city map and like all like the 12, 13 routes and all of their colors and stuff getting around. And like trying to show that to anybody, they'd be like, no, I'll just call a cab. And so what I did was that at each individual location, I made these little posters that showed how you can get around just from where you are. So when we did our thing at the Burns Towers, I showed on these posters where you get picked up and dropped off and which bus it would be. So in this case, it'd be the number 7, including the label of the bus, as well as the hours in the top right corner. Every one of these posters started with Veterans Park because every bus starts and stops at Veterans Park or across the street at the Hilton Doubletree. And it would show all of the locations you could get to. So in this case, you could get to the Catholic Medical Center, the Cash and Senior Center. You could also get to 2nd Street in Manchester with all the different shopping areas there. The Bedford Mall, which is really where the Panera is that most people are really interested at that place, myself included, and then the Bedford Hill Center.
This is like a poster size thing.
Yeah, it's a
That's excellent idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we made all smaller individual handouts so people could take them with them.
That's what I was trying to remember, like the little cards, but then
Yeah.
the older you get, the harder it is to see little cards.
Yeah.
I was going to segue into that so good. No, it's all good. So we did this for a couple locations, and so some places like the Senior Center, you could get access to 2 different bus routes from there. So the same one I mentioned last time, the number 7, getting to Bedford. You could also do the number 6. It shows you where you get picked up and dropped off, even if it's 2 separate locations for each bus. And so the number 6 could get people over to Goffstown, or they want to go to the Kelly Falls Apartments, the Hannaford and Goffstown, the Goffstown Plaza, and then the St. A's College. I did this for the Calabas Apartments, which in this case had 3 different bus routes. So you could get to the Carrier Museum of Art through this. You could do Stark Park and SNHU. You could also go on South Willow with the number 8, get into all the shopping spots there, as well as the Walmart and Mall of New Hampshire. Or you could take both the number 2 and the number 9 and get to Elliott Hospital, the Dairyfield Medical Group, and then the East Side Plaza, where another Hannaford is, as well as a dialysis center. And it was crazy putting this together for the YMCA because now you got 5 different routes doing this. And so, of course, you have the Green Dash that was mentioned earlier, the free downtown shuttle. Some of the buses I mentioned earlier, so the number 1, the 6, the 7. Using the number 11, you can get to the Manchester Community College, the Hooksett and Walmart, or even get to the Cedar Swamp Trail. I actually went to that last week. It was actually a really nice trail. They had a nice, flat, accessible path, like very like small grain gravel. So it's really nice that they have that there to accommodate everybody. And of course, the Green Dash getting you to the health department, the UNH Manchester Center, and then the Market Basket on Elm. And then, as Liliana alluded to earlier, we also had this in a little like trifold thing as well. So you see this map on the back of this, but on the front of this, you also had like FAQs about riding the bus, and then also this little tiny column that shows all the key medical centers, grocery stores, and community centers in the city, and what buses you would use to access them. So, of course, all the Hannafords and Market Baskets on the grocery stores, but also some of the smaller superettes, like the Bartlett Street, the bunnies, the price right, some of these I'd never heard of before, but I just felt it was really important to keep those on there, as well as some of the community resources, so the libraries, Easter seals, the Manchester public departments, and then of course the food bank, the Social Security Administration, and then the YMCA Center. And I didn't have a good segue to end this, so I'm just going to say thank you very much, and then I'll open up to any questions and comments. Yeah.
2 comments. Firstly, the handouts, posters, awesome. Thank you. You guys did a great job with that. Yeah, 1, they look great.
Yeah.
And 2, they look incredibly well researched. So you guys did an awesome job on those. Secondly, doing like community presentations like that, especially how many you guys did and are doing, that's a lot of work. So I wanted to say like, that's a lot of effort. You guys seem to do a really good job with that. So thank you.
Yeah, and Ben did an amazing job. I will say he is way better at graphic design than I am, and so I'm so happy he did all of those maps. Because like even for me, I know how to read the bus schedule, but I looked at his handouts and I was like, oh, this is so much simpler. Yeah, I don't have to find, okay, where am I on the map? Which buses go here? Where are these? I'm just like, oh, I live at the Burns Apartments. I know I can go here and here and here.
That's really cool. And I can make those for any of the locations for those in the room or those on call who have any centers throughout the city that you think could use those posters. I could totally just make those for you. Like,
I'm gonna be really interested to go back to these places next year and see how many people have changed the way they live.
And we get ridership data from the MTA too for all their bus routes. So we get that monthly. So I could actually look in the next coming months and see like for each of these routes that are highlighted on here, if there's been any sort of change in ridership.
Stop sharing the screen.
Yeah, if there's any questions online.
That was a great exercise in visualizing data. Nicely done.
Thank you.
And I think you should do one for SNHPC.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because we talk about like, these are public meetings and, we want to promote them as public meetings. And one good way to do it might be able to show, here's how to access it. Access our organization via the bus. Yeah.
There is a route that is 1 block away.
1 block away.
Yeah.
Exactly. I thought it was also really helpful that you gave a little description of exactly where it stopped, like in front of which building, because if you're a first-time bus rider, you probably don't know, like, do I get off now or do I wait? So it's really helpful to just have those little bits of those clues, right?
Yeah, it was very hard to like find a way to simplify where the bus would pick you up without getting too into the details, because like they got you at the intersection of like Dubuque and what's that road? Amory. It would just say Dubuque and Amory, which could make sense to us, but someone would see that and be like, what's Dubuque and Amory? So I had to do like intersection of Dubuque and Amory Street, stuff like that. So there's a lot of like minuscule details that was incorporated in this just to make sure that those who don't know a thing about riding the bus, it would make sense to them.
One additional item that might be useful to some folks anyway is to know which particular buses have a bicycle carrier and which don't.
Yeah, all buses have a bike rack that can fit 2 bikes. And I have never seen or heard of people having a problem where it fills up and they're not able to bring their bike on.
Great, okay.
But that is good information to maybe include on other.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they all had that. That's fantastic.
Yes, they do.
And I will say, as much credit as we're taking today, a lot of this work also was done by both the MCA and the health department, because they're the ones who was able to actually get all of these organized in the first place. So I definitely would extend all praises and appreciations to them as well. JB?
Yeah. Hey, the reason I'm on today is this is one of the presentations I wanted to see, partly because I thought it might be inspiring for other parts of the state. And I'm really impressed, like everybody else has said, and just want to throw it out there, Ben, if you haven't already thought about sharing this with other parts of the state, the other mobility managers. I think that you've put it together a really nice package, a really good, steps to take that to create a successful program in other regions. And I think other regions would benefit by the work that you guys have done. So congratulations and give it some thought.
Yeah, thank you. All the mobility managers already reach out to me asking for Canva help. So I know they will be too great to do that. Something else I was going to say, but I think everybody should be grateful that I work in the public sector, not private, because I'm just doing this all to save my workload, not charging any of this. So if I was working at a graphic design firm, I'd be trying to break that in as much as I could. But I'm doing this for the good of the community. So everybody appreciates that.
And are we promoting that final session that's currently on the schedule for the health department?
The health department has been promoting it. I think I saw, Liliana, correct me if I'm wrong, there's about like 60 organizations registered for that.
I think about 60 people, but closer to
Yeah.
a couple of organizations are sending multiple people.
Yeah. So the health department one is going to be a little different. So all the ones we've been to recently have been catered towards the riders themselves. Whereas this one coming up next week will be more catered to the organizations that represent those who would be riding the bus. So we'll have to, it's going to be it's going to be different, but very exciting, very jam-packed. It's going to be, it's going to be a real party. Yeah.
Snack actually.
Yeah. Like I wasn't eating them already.
Another thing to note is Ben and Liliana and we're also working with Angelique and the Easter Seals group and their work with Vets Counts and all the folks that Angelique's group works with as well. So, working with individual agencies, we can do that too. So getting the word out.
Yep. Yeah, I just did the bus buddy pilot training with Liliana last week. So we're working on trying to recruit some other people within Easter Seals to help spread the word on that program.
Awesome.
All right, so that concludes our new business. There are a few items listed under other business. I don't know is that you, Nate?
I will do the update on regional gas at hearings. I think when we met last month, we were preparing for the regional gas at meetings. Those are finished now. We had 3 in the region. First being in Manchester, the second in Derry, and the third in Bedford. I thought it might be good just to kind of recap a few of the highlights. I'm not going to recap everybody, individual comments and the likes, but hit a few of the highlights. So in Manchester, that hearing was held on September 16th. It was chaired by Councillor John Stephen. I counted approximately 35 people in the room. That's not an official count. That's just from my notes. We had a number of City of Manchester officials who spoke in support of the Exit 6 and 7 project from a number of different lenses. Safety, economic development. We know there is longstanding broad support in the city for the Exit 6 and 7 project, and that was certainly underscored at the Manchester Gas at hearing. We had what I would call a number of industry professionals and contractors that came not only to Manchester, but to all of the hearings in our region. Continental Paving, Pike Industries, a number of prominent statewide transportation contractors and industry professionals. They all generally had the same message, and that message was in support of a toll increase, and also in support, some being in support of a gas tax increase as well. They came to all of the hearings in the region, Continental Paving and Pike Industries and others. We had one state representative, actually Representative David Priest, who I think many of us all know well as a former SNHPC director. He spoke in strong support of passenger rail development. Obviously, it's a longstanding position of his personally to support passenger rail development, and he spoke strongly in support of that at the Manchester hearing. We did have one comment from official in the town of Merrimack, who I think may have been a dual role town councilor and state rep from Merrimack, who spoke in opposition to the proposed transfer of Continental Boulevard to the town. That has been a local issue in Merrimack that's been boiling for some time. It is an issue that will ultimately be decided by the state legislature, so we'll see what comes of that. Ben was there as well. Ben was actually at all of the hearings in the region, speaking as the regional mobility manager and speaking about both the need for and importance of community transportation services in the region. The public at large, but in particular the elderly and disabled populations. In Derry, that hearing was held on September 29th. It was chaired by Councillor Janet Stevens. However, Councillor John Stephen was also there. It was sort of a joint, I guess you could call it a Derry/Londonderry hearing. Derry being in Councillor Janet Stevens' council district, Londonderry being in Councillor John Stevens' council district. So both councillors were there and presiding. I counted unofficially about 40 attendees there. It was pretty reasonable turnout in Derry. A number of comments in support of the Exit 4A project and finishing the Exit 4A project as expeditiously as possible. If you've been following the Exit 4A project, one of the construction projects, the C project we call it, is now looking at the start of construction, I believe in fiscal 27. There were comments of could it start earlier if it was phased, or if certain elements of the C project started before or after. So a lot of interest in seeing the complete Exit 4A project done as expeditiously as possible. We did have a resident of the town of Rye who presented a petition to the councilors and to all of us at the front of the room related to issues on Causeway Road. Not my area of expertise. We obviously, the town of Rye is not in our region. My colleague, Dave Walker from the Rockingham Planning Commission, was in attendance. I actually handed that petition to him so that he could follow up on it as necessary as his commission serves the town of Rye. We had those same contractors that I talked about before, industry professionals speaking in favor of a toll increase. We had, I think, probably the most poignant comment of the evening was from a resident of the Island Pond Road area who spoke about a pedestrian crash that she was involved with, and I believe resulted in the death of her dog. If I'm recalling that correctly, it sounded like it was a mid-block rail trail crossing that might not have had great warning signage, or and the resident requested that the Commissioner Cass and the councilors make improvements to the signage and visibility of the trail crossings on Island Pond Road. In Bedford, that was held the following night on September 30th. Councillor John Stephen presided over that hearing. I counted somewhere between 25 and 30 attendees unofficially. Rick Sawyer, who many of you know, the town manager in Bedford, spoke on behalf of the town of Bedford, spoke in support of the Route 3 project, the South River Road project that we've talked about a number of times here at the TAC. He also spoke about the need locally to address the Catesby Lane Bridge. Andre Guerin, the town administrator in Hooksett, spoke on behalf of the town of Hooksett in support of both the Route 3 project that's currently under design in the town of Hooksett, as well as the project to improve the Route 3A intersections with Main Street and Hackett Hill Road. We had the same contractors from Continental Paving, Pike Industries, and others speak at the Bedford hearing as well in support of a toll increase. A number of members of the public actually spoke at the Bedford hearing as well. Most of those speaking in favor of a potential toll increase, but there was one member of the public who was cautious about a potential toll increase. So I would note that as well. We also had a resident of the town of Brentwood speak in favor of improvements on at the intersection of South Road and Route 125. I understand that this was a priority project for our colleagues at the Rockingham Planning Commission that was not able to be included in the draft 10-year plan due to funding constraints. So this Brentwood resident was speaking in favor of that project. Beyond that, that's just kind of a general summary from my notes. It doesn't encompass every comment that was made, but hit some of the highlights. If anybody else who was at any of the hearings would like to mention anything else, feel free to do so at this time. But that's my high-level overview of the GASSET hearings that occurred in our region. The Bedford hearing was the final one in our region, was also the final one in Councilor Stevens' council district. So. But the hearings are continuing throughout the state, at least for the next week or two, I think. As we get close to the end of October, I think the hearings come to wind down. But DOT's been busy out 3, if not 4 nights a week, I think, in some of recent weeks. Is there one tonight in Plastow? Yes. So that. Not technically in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region, but close by. It is in the district that Ben serves as the regional mobility manager. So I believe he will be at the Plastow hearing tonight. So I will stop there. If anybody else has anything to add, feel free to do so. But that's kind of just the general update on the region's GASSET hearings in this cycle.
I'm going to piggyback on that. And so I hadn't had a chance to chat with Nate, since our RPC directors meeting last Thursday, where I asked the question of all the directors, were they taking a stance on, supporting funding mechanisms like a gas tax increase or the toll increase of $1 that was put forward during the GASSET hearings. And I believe almost every single RPC has put it towards either their TAC or their MPO. And so I wanted to bring that up. I know we don't have a quorum, so we cannot take a vote, but I'm not sure if the group wants to take a consensus about the toll increase or gas tax increase.
Can I have discussion? Sure. So I don't have a problem with the toll increase because I understand from reading recently that like we're way below Maine and Massachusetts. Like I want some parity here. So I don't have a problem increasing the tolls. Also, I don't drive the tolls. I don't have one of those transports. I don't go anywhere. So I don't care. Go ahead, jack it up. But the gas tax irritates me because I feel like part of the reason it gets pushed up all the time is especially as we continue to go, we have so many more electronic vehicles on the road than we used to, and they don't pay the gas tax, and that just bugs me. So I am not in favor of increasing the gas tax prior to ascertaining how to adequately receive and return an equal road usage equivalent from registered electronic vehicles.
That was brought up, and I'm sure, I don't know, Nate, if you know better than I do, that was brought up. And right now, I believe there is an extra, I don't know if you call it a surcharge or fee for electric and hybrid vehicles when they register their car. And it's extensive. And there's a lot of pushback from those car owners that it is in excess of what you would normally pay if the gas tax were increased. I don't know, Nate, if you could add to that.
I believe there was a surcharge that was passed. Was it the last legislative session, or I want to say it's $100, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, that's what
per year at the time of registration.
That's what I've heard.
I will note, as it relates to this discussion, New Hampshire DOT has not brought up a gas tax increase as part of the GASSET hearings. They have not proposed a gas tax increase. Yeah. I think the industry professionals, the contractors, others have brought up gas tax increase, which again is above and beyond what the DOT has proposed. The DOT has proposed What they proposed is specific to the tolls, $1 increase at each of the major toll plazas in the state to fund the major projects, which include exit 6 and 7, the FE Everett Turnpike completion, and I believe the Turnpike portion of Bow Concord. That has been what the DOT has presented at all the Gasset hearings and has supported. The DOT, I think it's fair to say they have supported that toll increase proposal. But they have not brought anything up about the gas tax. And as far as I know, the DOT has no position on increasing the gas tax at this time. I'd just like to note that dynamic because it is.
Yeah, but to answer that, there is a lot of discussion about that $100.
Discussion finally has started. It's been years. I've been waiting for it for years, and now we're starting it. So I don't feel like it's been resolved. So I'm not in favor of penalizing one driver over another driver because of some esoterical ideological thing. You know, like I want parity for the tires on the road, not
just one point. That fee is already in existence. My wife has an electric vehicle and she pays that now.
right. So I'm not, you know, I haven't seen the math to show that that's equitable. I feel like there needs to be more discussion about why we're charging what we're charging and why we're not charging what we're not charging before a gas tax increase, further gas tax increase.
That's helpful. So I think, yeah, I can understand wanting additional information and looking if you put on 15,000 miles on your car, what would the difference between like someone who gets a 25 miles versus electric or hybrid, what they would pay. So that's a good question.
So perhaps the fee pickup comes from, you know, they get rid of the part where you have to have your safety inspection, you know, like everything's electronic. I keep being told that everything's electronic, like everybody's gonna review these information. So if we still had that safety thing where every year you have to pay a registration fee to the DMV for your car, right? Whatever it's excise tax, whatever it is. Why can't your mileage be tracked and paid by mileage? Why does it have to be gas versus electric? Why is it, you know?
I believe there's a federal pilot right now.
They're doing that?
Yeah.
So I'd like to wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
How far does that dollar increase in tolls get toward funding? Is that like 10% closer to funding of like exit 6 and 7 or
As far as
Bill has his hand up. So the question was, what does that dollar do, Bill? I wonder if you might address that.
Excuse me. Yes, absolutely. So the dollar is a general starting point for conversation at the hearings. But if that dollar went through our initial projections it would pay for all of 6-7. It would pay for all of Bow Concord to be both projects to be completed, and it would allow for other conversations. There's so those two things would be back in the draft 10-year plan. We would advance the Merrimack Bedford continuation of the Everett Turnpike widening. And we could have conversations about sound walls that we're hearing about from people in your region and others. We could hear about all electronic tolling at some of the plazas that don't have it now. The toll increase would be significant for the projects that are being impacted right now in the draft 10-year plan. We haven't taken a stand on the gas tax, and that's a more difficult conversation. We talk about being $400 million over programmed. If the state of New Hampshire through the legislature wants to erase a $400 million gap by raising the tolls, or excuse me, raising gas tax or additional EV fees or some combination of both, that will solve a lot of problems, maybe. And that's where it has to be a very careful and well thought out conversation. 12% of all gas tax revenues come back to the towns. So whatever we raise in gas tax or electric vehicle fees or registration fees, 12% of it goes right back to the towns. So towns would love that, but it doesn't help the projects that are being proposed to be cut from the 10-year plan. If we don't have additional federal funds, that's a concern as well. We're coming under a lot of pressure right now about our funding revenue projections for federal funds. We heard it the other night in Bethlehem, and I'm sure we'll hear it tonight in Plastow and other locations still. That we're not getting enough federal money. So if we don't have additional federal money, which pays for 80 to 100% of our projects that are being cut from the 10-year plan, a gas tax increase isn't going to help that. Certainly, a gas tax increase would help the communities. It would help our operational budget at the department. It would help in other areas, but a gas tax or EV fee increase doesn't necessarily go directly to projects unless some careful and deliberate conversations with the legislature. I didn't see the person who was asking about EV fees, but there has been an ongoing study, many ongoing studies, and there continues to be in the legislature about how to be more equitable about user fees that are not tolls. User fees being whether they're VMT tax or gas tax or EV surcharges or the other forms of revenue. There are many legislative efforts to try to figure that out. And certainly we have heard at we've had 18 gas hearings, so we've heard at every one the discussion of gas tax and tolls, and there's been general agreement about all, but both of those are going to require a lot more discussion, both in the legislature and in the executive council.
Thank you so much. So I think the question I would put for consensus then to this group, because I feel the gas tax needs more information. But as far as the toll goes, the dollar increase, would we have consensus and thumbs up from the group to bring this forward to the MPO for further discussion?
I'm happy and reasonable.
Your thumbs up here.
I'd like to have our Senate bodies get us with parity with Vermont. This is the time of year where I always forget that we're a bit skewed federally.
Right.
For Vermont.
Right,
It's always now, but it's almost too late. So how do we do that? How do we get people with Vermont?
That's the federal formula. Reauthorization discussions are happening in Washington. So Congress is already starting to craft and has made some progress in crafting what will come after the IIJA. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act turns into a pumpkin in September of 2026. Something will succeed it. That whatever that is going to be the new set of formulas or the continuation of the old set of formulas if the past is prologue.
So that's when the formula would get changed.
It's in that discussion. I can assure you that Congressman Pappas, who is on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, is well aware of the formula. Yeah. So and is, I'm sure, advocating on New Hampshire's behalf in those discussions. But it has been it's been that formula since MAP 21 in 2012. So that formula is held true now for more than 12 years, 13 years now and counting. It would be great if New Hampshire got a better shake in the formula in whatever comes in reauthorization. Can only hope.
All right, so I think we'll put it on the MPO schedule to have this conversation and continue the discussion. Thank you.
The last thing under other business is local pedestrian count requests.
Yeah, that's just a quick announcement. I've sent around emails to all of our towns that SNHPC now has a pedestrian counter specifically for municipal requests. So any town or city who's interested, please let me know. We do 2 to 3 week counts throughout the year. We've had a couple requests already from Chester and Derry, so we'd like to keep that counter active and collecting good data rather than sitting at the office, so.
Anything else? No?
We don't need a motion. All right.
We don't, since we didn't.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks on our online participants. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
What's the opposite of here? So we didn't. I always get the first letter, but I always lose the rest of them.